So I wanted just to start out by just officially saying that this whole intention of the last 3 modules was really to help you become more conscious, more aware of yourself, whatever that means to you, whether it's your intellect and your thoughts and the different energy patterns that are running through your day-to-day, and how that kind of is connected to the heart, to your feeling center, the emotions that sometimes get stuck or that create our story and that kind of allow us to live in those particular sequences. And so everything that we're going to be doing from this point forth is really going to be based on this starting place, this being aware of where we are. And your now is always changing. And so the understanding of your now and of the present place, that's always a chance for a new beginning, which we'll talk about a little bit more in depth. But what's interesting is that many of us replay the same thoughts again and again. Many of us replay the stories, the feelings, the emotions. We run them through ourselves, in a cellular fashion, where we move into such a strong belief as to who we are and how we're seen. And there's some of you who are part of this. You are really standing in the shadow and choosing to do that, choosing to stay invisible, choosing not to be heard. You're giving yourself that I'd say permission. That feels a little strong, but you are choosing to hide. You're in that state of giving yourself full permission, because we have the ability to choose at any moment. And some of you are really hiding. You're hiding. You're only showing us small glimpses of you. You kind of pop in and out. So I invite you again to be observed, which we're going to talk about, either from a place where your higher self, your central self, is witnessing you, and or to have another version of you, let's call that other version of you, me, Michelle, witness you. Can be very enlightening, can be very powerful. So I just wanted to start there with that invitation for those of you who haven't yet come forward and allowed me, to kind of see you and witness you. I feel like the next place to go is going to kind of go into some recap. Now, I spent a great deal of time preparing for today. There's going to be a tremendous depth to the energy that's here, which is why it took so much preparation, so much time. We're talking, it probably took me a good 3 hours to prepare, to really match the vibration of where you all are and to assist you in moving forward. So I took quite a few notes, and I will be referring to those notes quite a bit with the intention of really allowing us to experience and to feel that vibration of asking the question, taking in the information, reflecting upon it, and then simply returning to the now. That's really the most important piece. So in module 1, just to kind of recap, did a lot of, this is where we're going to be going, and this is why, and we did discussions of what to expect and how to stay on track. I also spoke about the importance of learning to be in the body, what that actually means to be in the body, to go out and to hug some trees, to begin to feel your physical connection to other beings, to notice things like what it feels like to put your feet in shoes, to notice what it feels like if you have a pebble in your shoe, to really connect with your physical surroundings, with your physical self in a way that you can begin to explore, in a way that you can allow to feel new. So interestingly enough, as I sat here, and I didn't even realize why I was doing it until now, but before my, you all see, normally I have a big thing of water and I often drink it. Well, to experience the coolness of water is very different than to experience the heat and the sensation of tea. Okay, this is tea. And I have both today. I encourage you to play just like you did when you were a toddler. This is about really connecting with yourself on all levels, including the physical level. So the point of Module 1 was to help you become very aware of how you're perceiving, how you're taking in your physical self. And for many of you, it was only from here. It was only from head. And for some of you, it was only from heart space, all feeling. We discussed that a little bit and had you begin to move your breath to take on new perspectives and new ways of being. You were then asked to keep doing this breath work. And I encouraged you to go back and to watch those mini course videos, the videos 1 and video 2, and to begin to recognize how you're personally intuiting in terms of your primary clairs. You might remember we talked about the clairaudience and the clairsentience and the clairvoyancy, right? And how all of that ties in, et cetera, et cetera. I'm missing one, and I'm just going to keep going with the flow. So what I'd like to invite you to do is to recognize that from Module 1 to Module 2, there was a soul assignment so that you were then ready and prepared to move forward. Well, I spoke about the fish aquarium analogy. I talked about how my dad liked to raise fish and how this was a good analogy for me, and I wanted you to find your own analogy. If you could relate to it, maybe if you had a better one, go with what works for you. But how as you start to stir around those energies, if you go a little bit too fast, there's lots of stinky stuff that starts to come to the surface. And so I encourage those of you especially who are perceiving the world more from that heart space, more from that empathic place, more from that place of sensitivity, especially if you knew you were extra sensitive to energies around you, to really start to go slow, to stir those energies in a nice, nurturing fashion where it felt safe. Not to really get ahead of yourself. We talked about how you could get ahead of yourself sometimes. And the importance of going in a slow, gentle way so that you weren't really going too fast. We talked about how we always want the left brain to come along for the ride so that we can give some meaning to it. Yet the meaning, remember, is what defines it. So to get too stuck in the definition or to get too stuck in the meaning will keep you wondering, will keep you questioning. So we don't want to give it the break. We can hover the foot, give it the meaning as we move along, but not actually take the time to reflect too much, to question too much. Because the moment that we do that, we're no longer in the present moment. We're back here in our head. And so just to recognize the differences of doing that. We talked about the importance of allowing the imagination to open and what that feels like and how your left brain will be saying, you know, this is stupid, this is dumb, or it feels like I'm making it up, and how to celebrate that. Because that is the beginning of allowing that feminine energy to move through you in a way that you can surrender to later on. We also talked about how that right brain is really that place of clarity when it comes to intuition. And for those of you who are in the heart, you have a lot of right brain that moves through you. But if you're stuck in any emotions and you're not allowing those emotions to pass through you, it's really the same as someone who's stuck in thoughts in their intellect or who has the foot on the brake. You're putting your foot on your brake, so to speak, in your emotions, and you're getting caught in a place of grief or sadness or guilt or shame or all of these things. It was in this particular module, Module 2, that I had you begin to feel what it was like to have a mini, what I called out-of-body experience, simply because I wanted you to start to feel what it feels like to not be in your body versus when you're in your body. And I asked you to start coming in at it from the head initially. Remember, we orbited around the head. And many of you could do that because you're comfortable from here to here. You could go outside yourself and back in and look at yourself from the inside out, etc. Now, when I ask you to start moving that perception down below the neck and into the navel, and then from the perspective of behind you, in front of you, left of you, right of you, you might have been able to do it from that outer body, but when it came to actually being in, some of you were struggling a little bit to actually be in your heart and to actually stay there and to perceive the world. And so this is why in module 3, I had you take and move it more with the sun and with the moon and really stay with it and change positions by having it orbit through you and around you so that you could really build upon one session to another. Just remember that doing the breath work, keeping in mind that each module does build upon the other. When you're doing the breath work and you're playing in the energy field and you're getting a feel for how you're perceiving, how you're taking it all in, you're opening yourself to strengthen that pathway into self-trust. Because by doing this and by being willing to have this new experience, by detaching and letting go of some of those old thoughts or those old stories, or beginning to move through some of those emotions, which we're really going to start to do in trimester 2, it's really going to be helpful for you as we go forward. In module 3, we, of course, did a recap of the auric field. And I also added in the back and the front polarity information. I asked you, as you remember, to feel into the definition of consciousness. Rather than think about it, to feel into it. Because this is really about feeling. Of the 3 centers of intelligence, really the least functional when it comes to connecting with our truth is the intellect. Because that's where the story is, that's where the belief system is. And that heart center, and this is why people talk about being the heart, can be also very important. Someone asked the question and said, you know, there's a lot of spiritual teachers out there right now who are talking about being in the heart space, you know, all this heart stuff, but without actually being in the body, if you're not in the body first, what can happen? You stay outside of yourself. You're constantly looking inward, reflecting, and kind of getting stuck in some of those emotions. This is why I have everyone start with being in the physical, really being in the body, feeling what it feels like to be in your toes, practicing that. This is essential. What is kind of taking priority? Be in your body, not from here or from here, but in it, fully, completely. This is really key. And I'm going to give you some suggestions today. I reminded everybody in module 3 what it was like to really be centered. What does that mean? To feel what it's like to be in the center of your auric field. And that's with that moon and that sun again. To have you kind of feel that, to be aware of the energy in front of you and behind you, left of you, right of you, above you, below you. That's what it feels like to be centered, is when you're really in your core. We talked about the grounding energy below you, aware of the uplifting energy above you, aware of the feminine energy to the left of you and in front of you, noticing the masculine energy behind you and to the right of you. It's really about dispersing your energy, connecting in such a way that you can kind of move into that state of nothingness, into that void from that center point. That's where we're going with all of this. If your intellect wants to understand why, this is why. So that when I say ground, center, and I then invite you to move into that place of nothingness, that apex, that essence, you'll know what I mean and how to do it. So this is your soul assignment, is to continue to move your energy in such a way that it can be in the front of you, that it can be behind you, to perceive yourself from different angles. And many people, because they rely so much on their eyesight, have to close their eyes to connect and to feel. This is why I'll say start slow. Close your eyes, move into your nose, go slow, because for each place, we want to disperse the energy in a slow, meaningful manner and also really be aware of how we're connecting and what it feels like to be perceiving ourselves in this way. You also experienced how to move into that field of nothingness. And some of you went there and some of you weren't quite ready, and that's okay. Remember, this isn't about measuring yourself or comparing yourself with anyone else. It's just simply noticing where you are today, being okay with it, and inviting yourself to go a little further next time along. I also encouraged you to relax. Some of you are wanting specific tasks, specific to-dos, and I reminded you that this is more about the ta-da, to connect with the ta-da in all of you, to keep putting yourself first. I talked about how I put myself first every day, how I meditate first thing in the morning, how I do this before I even get out of bed, and how it's important that you notice what's good for you. Yet, that being said, you don't want to get into a routine, such a routine that your ego or your left brain can start to kind of, you know, get smart, too smart for its own good. As far as some of your experiences that you had in Module 3, and for some of the signs and the symbols, the point, and this is really important, the point was not to know why this particular symbol or this particular sign was showing up. Some of you felt like you were guessing. Remember, that's okay. It's going to feel like you're making it up. Some of you went off the definition of what your intellect told you it should be rather than moved into the feeling of the energy. So stay with the feeling rather than your past story. It may not have anything to do with that story. Feel into the energy of what that symbol was saying and how it spoke to you in that moment. That's what I'd like for you to go back into. When we go into our intellect and we try to figure it out and try to put meaning to it based on our past, we've already removed ourselves from the frequency. So stay in the now and use your feeling centers if you're going to interpret, okay? If we have a pain in the left side of the back, would it be related to feminine or masculine or both? The feminine governs the left side of the body, remember, which in turn activates the right hemisphere. The right hemisphere, for the most part, is our visual, our intuitive, our creative. Traits, when it comes to the intellect, the brain up here, right? Traits of the feminine then are more artsy, they're sensitive, they're nurturing, they're easygoing. Pain then, on the left side of the body, it could indicate that there's some type of a feminine aspect out of balance in some way. So if you notice, for example, a lot of tension, and I'm using the opposite side here, but if you notice a lot of tension in your right shoulder, it could be your masculine side speaking. If it's onto the left of you, it could be your feminine side speaking. The masculine side, remember, for those of you, just to kind of recap, it activates the left, the logical side of the intellect, the brain up in your head. The left side's often associated then with things like aggression, if it's too extreme, physical strength, control, the need to know, ego, right? There may be a pattern, for example, of somebody who has a lot of right shoulder pain. And again, they're exerting a lot of effort, they're overdoing, and or it could be that that side of them that's giving, in the case of knees or legs, if it's the right leg or the right foot and it's somehow injured, a lot of times it's because you're afraid to put yourself out there. So it could be overdoing it or not taking the action to do it on the right side. Knowing that the back of you, the energy behind you is masculine. Also understanding that the left side is where your feminine energy comes in. Is it both? It's very possible that it could be both. The question becomes is, have you actually taken some time to ask it? Go into that part of your body through that breathing exercise. Sit with it, be in it, and ask it what it needs, what it wants. It's possible. I don't have your answers, but yes, it's very possible because it's behind you, and that's your masculine trying to move you, and it's also causing pain on the left side of you. It's possible that that masculine is trying to move you into your feminine on that part of you, and for some reason you're resisting it, which is why there's pain. All pain is really a message from our body, letting us know that something needs our attention. So go into it, pay attention to it, give it what it needs, breathe into it the same way I asked you to breathe and be in your nose. Be in that portion of your body. Notice what's happening. Simply noticing is really the start of healing. Just simply noticing, being aware. A lot of people aren't aware. As I said, some people aren't aware that the tag on their back of their shirt is itching them. They're not even aware that it's causing that. Not in their body. They're not aware there's a pebble in their shoe. They're not aware that, you know, there's a hole in their armpit, in their shirt, I should say. Some people just aren't aware. And being aware is really key. How would someone know if a spirit form has entered our state during meditation? For example, what might it feel like regarding symptoms? I ask because during meditation, I had an unusual, denser energy, perhaps, feeling in my nose, maybe my cheekbones, definitely in my jaw. It made me want to drop my jaw open. It did want me to call in my guides also for guidance, to also say that if something was there that's not of love or not of light, to leave, to let go, basically to leave the space. It didn't shift the sensation though. I didn't get any clear guidance from my team. Out of meditation, it's not even present. The main question that I'm hearing you ask is it safe? Is it safe? Is it something that I can trust? Why is it that I came in and that I felt the need to immediately ask, is this, you know, why didn't they go away when I called upon my guides? Am I doing something wrong? I mean, these are all questions that are coming from here. Again, the energy was new to you, but just because something's new doesn't mean that it's wrong. It doesn't mean that it has to be distrusted. It's new. As I go through answering some questions and adding my own intuition to this, hopefully I'll start to address it, because today my intention as I was preparing for this was to move energy. How I want to address this, and this is going to address a lot of people's questions. Illusion is a deception. If you look in the dictionary, illusion's definition is deception. So in psychology, illusion is known as a perception, an optical illusion. All right. It represents what is perceived in a way different from the way that it really is in reality. So why do I mention this? Well, I'm going to share lots of different things, and then I want you to follow your truth as far as where your feeling is taking you. This isn't about trying to wrap your mind around it from an intellect standpoint. It's about feeling into the vibration and really consciously being aware of the meaning from that deep place within, knowing it and connecting with it through feeling. So Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I absolutely love, if you don't know his work, I encourage you to just kind of check him out. It said this: you can see less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's all the wavelengths of light. It's all the possible wavelengths of light. So we can physically see with our eyes less than 1% of that. We can hear less than 1% of the acoustic spectrum. And of course, this is all the different wavelengths of possibility when it comes to sound. So as an example, the existence of a rainbow depends on what's called the conical photoreceptors in our physical eyes. And a lot of animals don't have this. They don't have this cone, this conical receptor. Without the cone, the rainbow does not exist. Without the cone, the rainbow does not exist. So we don't look at a rainbow, we create it. Remember, we're creating it at less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum because we're doing it with the physical eyes. What our physical eyes can perceive is just a sliver of the total amount of light that surrounds us. So be it radio waves or gamma rays rather, most of the light in the universe is what? It's invisible. Okay, I talked in the beginning, some of you are invisible right now. You're wanting to hide, but I can feel you, right? My physical eyes might not be able to see you interacting. My ears might not be able to hear you physically. But when I close my eyes and I listen with my intuitive ears and I feel into your energy, I can pick up on so much more. So this is the same way. The universe is invisible to us in many ways when we try to perceive it. And notice I use the word try deliberately here. We're working at it. We're forcing it from that place of understanding, from the intellect. So invisible means not perceptible by the eye. It also means not perceptible or discernible by the mind. This is why you're all here. This is connecting to your intuition. This is understanding how to be your own medium when it comes to the spiritual world. To wrap your intellect around this and try to give it meaning is nearly impossible. Why is this? Because remember, you are only able to create a language for 1% of all of this in terms of tangibility, in terms of proof, in terms of solidity. So how you define the energy is totally up to you. It's totally up to you. Is it volatile? Is it scary? Is it loving? Is it trustworthy? You get to decide. At every moment, you get to decide. You get to determine it. And I'm going to help you understand why that is. So scientists tell us that everything is energy, right? We've heard this many times before, but by what definition of energy? Not everyone is as curious. Some people just take fact for fact. Oh, scientists say everything's energy. I've always been a very curious child and I want more information. And so I always say, but why, but by what definition of energy are we talking about? Because there's a few definitions if you look up the word energy. Now my truth, because this is how I choose to perceive it, so go with your own, but energy is a dynamic quality. Now dynamic means always changing, always active. So it is relating to motion or physical force. Energy is physical force. It's vigorous exertion. It's efforting. It's trying. It's making things challenging and hard. So everything is energy, yet you get to decide. Is it hard? Is it exerting? Is it exhausting? Is it a drive? Is it a force in that way? Or is it that always changing flow? That's where I choose to perceive things. All of you get to decide how it is that you perceive what you're perceiving. So energy, by definition, is usable power. Power, by definition, is source. Isn't that interesting? So power, source, is giving impetus to. Impetus to is incentive to, stimulation to, encouragement to. Therefore, energy, and again, based on my definition, go with your truth, is therefore your dynamic, ever-changing quality in your higher power. It is your higher power. It is the ever-changing quality of your higher power. Your power being your source. So how you use it is completely based on your own free will. How you use your inner power, how you use your source energy is completely up to you. This is why we have free will. So some of you are now beginning to recognize that you're efforting everything. You're doing, you're trying, you're driving that energy. That's how you're choosing to perceive it. You're wearing yourself out, quite frankly. And some of you are doing this by overthinking everything, and some of you are doing this by choosing to remain in your story and staying stuck in your feelings through the emotion center. Some of you are aware that you're still choosing suffering because you're not quite sure if it's a trick, you're not quite sure if it's trustworthy, you're not quite sure if you're deserving, etc., etc., etc. Some of you are aware that you're playing in the energy. You're dancing in it. You're dipping your toe into that field of possibility. You're feeling into the potentiality. So Eckhart Tolle, who you just have to be ready to hear his stuff. And when you're ready, it finally sinks in. Otherwise, it doesn't stick. He says, realize deeply that the present moment is all you ever have. What I've called the field of nothingness. This is the place where only the now exists. There's nothing to do here, nothing to try to be. You access it through feeling and through experiencing, yet even then, you somehow restrict it, don't you? Even then, because you're trying to define it rather than simply allowing to be what it is. It simply is. Most of you are still looking for a process. You're looking for a checklist. You're looking for a to-do. Some of you are beginning, as I said, to dabble in it, to play in it, to dip your toe in it. Yet you're still questioning, am I enough? Am I deserving? Am I lovable? Am I still broken? It's getting in the way of your full connection to your divinity, to that place of simply isness. Though this is really not a 1, 2, 3. When you hear me interview, I say step 1, self-awareness, step 2, self-trust, step 3, full self-acceptance, because our intellect needs to wrap around some type of a process. Yet it's really more like a sphere. It's very cyclical. It moves us into the field of love, the field of possibility, that field where we get to choose how it is that we're perceiving the energy. So self-awareness is very key here. It allows you to be the observer for a moment, just like you learned to do from that mini OBE, where you're observing yourself from outside in and then from inside out, right? It allows you to be that observer. And it allows you to be an observer for a moment as you realize then that you are not your thoughts. Just as you are not that song that's stuck in your head. You're the observer, aware that there's a wormhole playing that song in your head. Same thing with your thoughts. Once you pull yourself out and you realize you are not your thoughts, you can also realize you are not your emotions. You are not your story. And when you can do that and stay in flow, it's a beautiful thing. So to be the observer then allows you to extend that invitation of free will. It allows you to give impetus to. It allows you to open yourself into the energy of trust. That's huge, and that's where we're going. That's the invitation. So how do we shift into nothingness? Some of you might be asking. How is this possible? How do we trust, and how do we start detaching? You start to feel. You begin to feel, be in your body, feel from your toes. Start to pick up things with your toes. You can feel into the energies of flow, which is the essence, by the way, of who you are. Flow is defined as helping you move into stream. I mean, the definition, the actual definition of flow is to move in a stream, to proceed smoothly and readily. And my personal favorite, to issue or proceed from a source, your source. Isn't this wonderful? All these definitions can actually take you into the very vibration, into your own existence, into your own field. What is source? It is your starting point. It is your new beginning. It is your now, every moment by moment by moment. It is your field of intelligence. It is your all that ever is and ever was. We were going to talk more about the auric field. We were going to talk more about how to deal with the surrounding energy fields in our auric field. Well, again, knowing everything is energy and going back to the definition, a usable power, dynamic, ever-changing. We have the ability to use our free will then to observe this energy outside of ourselves however we choose to. This is why some people can go outside on a rainy day and say, oh, it's raining. And some people can go outside and go, oh, it's raining. We get to decide how we perceive the energy outside of us, as well as how we're perceiving the energy when we play in it and we allow it to touch us. We get to determine whether or not it's trustworthy or whether or not it's safe. It's all up to us. And remember, the illusion, the deception is that it's scary, that it's a shadow, that it has to be judged. It's source. It's that field of love. It's up to us through our free will as to how we receive it. It's this simple, yet we want to overcomplicate it because our energy and our understanding of energy, it has to be tough, it has to be challenging, it has to be forceful. No, it doesn't have to be. You get to decide. It's that simple. How are you perceiving yourself? On some level, everything around you is reflecting what's happening within, yes? On some level. And for example, I share a personal story. My friend said, oh, have you read Brene Brown's work? And people were sending me videos, or have you gone on to TED Talk and seen her? And then I was over at a friend's house and she said, oh, just let yourself in, I'm gonna be late. And there happened to be a note there, buy the book Brene Brown, it said. It was a note to herself. And I was like, whoa, what is up with this? Well, I know through Brene's work that she talks a lot about shame and how to deal with shame. And this did not resonate with me at all. I was like, total in denial, Consciously, I did not understand why the universe kept reflecting Brene Brown's work to me. And sure enough, I was in this workshop. It was intense. It was like a 20-hour workshop. It was really, really interesting because there was so much shame that came up from some of my past stories. I didn't even realize I was stuck in those energies. It was really, really interesting, and it helped me move through it. So yes, everything's a reflection from within. We just might not consciously be ready to receive it, or we might not be able to put meaning to it yet, but it will all come in divine time. That's the way it works. So if it feels like something scary, feels like it's a trick, it's how you perceive it. It's up to you. For the longest time, I thought all those energies were out to get me. I thought, as some of you know, watching my story, it was the devil, just because of my Catholic upbringing. It's up to you. Debbie Ford did a lot of shadow work. She talked about all this is your shadows. It's all your illusions. It's all deception. You get to decide what's scary or what's not. Everything around you, again, is usable power. Everything around you is your source energy. It's dynamic and it's ever changing. Yet what's your story about it? Is it always out to get you? Is it always distrustworthy? You get to decide. It's okay. This is giving you insights in order to move forward. Noticing heightened changes in the energy around you and in others in your life. You stated it's beyond serendipitous, saying you keep encountering the right people now, the right places, the right questions, the right knowing, and yet you have no clue as to how this is all occurring. You say, I continue to be amazed by how things are coming together for me, yet you added the importance of needing to trust it more, which implies there's still room for doubt. For all of you, I say, by questioning this field of love, this field of nothingness, you are questioning your own energy, your own source of power. You are questioning it. And when you do this, you set yourself up for kinking off the flow. You get to choose. That's free will. It's up to you. My advice to all of you, no matter what is happening, no matter what's coming in, is to send gratitude, to appreciate it. Seemingly good, seemingly bad, it's all there. Even the so-called bad stuff is really there as a gift once we begin to recognize that the universe has no ill intent. Everything it gives us is for us to be able to take it and to do something with it so that we can then up level in some way and move back into that love, back into the oneness, back into the source of who we are. As you recognize that, as you know that, and as you understand that is your gift, I encourage you, rather than question all of the good things, just to feel into it and recognize that this is your inner power and that it's working on your behalf. And call it good enough. Allow it. It's that simple. So your soul assignment between now and module 4 is to continue observing. That's it. Just notice. Notice what you're choosing. Some of you are even fighting me, but, on what I'm saying. That's okay. It's your choice. Notice how often you're in the now. Notice and catch yourself when you're not. Keep shifting, literally. Keep shifting by using your breath, Keep shifting by using that beautiful ability to be the observer and to move outside of yourself and in yourself, deep, deep down into the core, so that you understand when it is time for me to say we're all going to center, so you can do that easily and freely. Also, I encourage you to keep going outdoors, to walk, to really walk to the point where you can trust your body enough, where you can put all your awareness into your feet and start observing. You might not be able to walk at first, or you might have to close your eyes if you do, but feel the earth. Observe the earth through your feet, through your toes. Walk on the earth. Hug a tree from that place. Become one with the tree and feel your body from the tree's perspective, and then back again. It's just amazing. We are all one. We're all connected. We're all connected in some way. Observe the world through all these different spots, again, including your toes, through your knees. As you're walking, then shift it, go from the toes and then back into the knees. And then in a nice, safe area, I also encourage you, make sure there's nothing around you. But I encourage you to start walking backwards. When you walk backwards, and even if your eyes are closed or they're open, it doesn't matter, you start to feel this field. It's amazing. You can start to feel the field behind you, and then you connect with it, and you allow it to really become one with you, and then you can walk forward again. Allow that masculine energy to propel you forward. This is all going to be extremely beneficial. So that is my tip. That's my advice. For those of you who are in new experiences, you have new friends, new invitations, be open to tradition, be open to their way of moving through the world as you begin to shift your own position, and recognize that this too is an invitation for you to observe, to notice, to enjoy. It is, it's that simple. And you hear so many teachers talking about it is simple, it's simplicity. But part of the human experience, and if you look up the word experience, it can imply suffering. There's two different definitions of many things, sometimes 3 or 4. And the experience of something can imply suffering. To undergo, sometimes it's necessary to go there so that when we resurface, we can see how simple it really can be. We need something to compare it to. And so that's what some of you are doing right now. You're exploring, you're discovering, you're comparing, so that as you move into that beautiful field, you can appreciate it all the more. And so with that being said, I wish everybody a very blessed and joyous week. Namaste, everyone. Bye.